राष्ट्रिय तथा अन्तर्राष्ट्रिय गतिविधि, आर्थिक विकास, सामाजिक विकास, उत्तरदायित्व, जिम्मेवारी, पारदर्शिता, सुशासन, शिक्षा तथा अन्य सामाजिक सभ्यतासँग साक्षात्कार, कृषि तथा पर्यटनसँग हातेमालो, समग्रमा समाजका सबै पक्षसँग सरकार। यो हो वालिङ टेलिभिजन, तपाईको संचारको सहयात्री।
बेस्टको धमाका पोखरामा पढाइसँगै मनोरञ्जन, सिप र कला। Best Academy Pokhara, Best Bridge Course Center for SEE appeared students. Our program: Science, Management, Hotel Management, Nursing, SE, Lab, Pharmacy. Every Saturday, swimming, basketball, futsal, self-defense, public speaking and personality development classes. चिन्ता नगर्नुहोस्, अतिरिक्त शुल्क लाग्ने छैन। Managing Director Sri Krishna Shrestha. Contact number 98511-73535, 98560-82425 and 98460-68426. एसईई पछिको समयमा बेस्ट एकाडेमी पोखरा जाऊ। प्रदेशको राजधानी पोखरालाई एजुकेशनल हब बनाऊ।
तपाई हेर्दै हुनुहुन्छ वालिङ टेलिभिजन।
Hello, Namaste, good evening to all students of class 10 and all the people who are watching Waling television. I am Kamal Lamsal. I have been teaching in Ranavir Janahit Secondary School for 4 years, and now I am with you and in this virtual classroom, and I would like to welcome you all to my session, that is a virtual class of English. And today I am going to focus on writing skill. I directly want to enter into the topic. And my dear students, you all know that there are 4 questions. There are 4 questions from writing. And first 2 questions are guided writing, and second 2 questions are free writing. So today I am starting this class from guided writing. When we talk about guided writing, there are some exercises that need only sentences to answer, and there are other exercises that need at least 1 paragraph or many paragraphs to answer. So sentences are the basic level of expression. So in guided writing also we need some sentences to answer the question. So I'm going to start this class from sentence level. So rules and regulations, writing instructions, they require sentences. So today I'm starting from rules and regulation. So when we talk about rules and regulation, in our curriculum, rules and regulations are referred as obligation and prohibition. So don't be confused. Obligations and prohibitions are rules and regulations. So we are starting today's session from rules and regulations. So I have already told, rules and regulations are also referred to as obligation and prohibition. Generally, some private institutions and public places require rules and regulations. So if we visit some public places and private institutions, we see rules and regulations and we have to follow them. And if we don't follow rules and regulations, we might be punished. So let's start from rules and regulation. So when we talk about rule and regulations, we must remember four things. We need to write four, type of sentence structure. So permission, obligation, prohibition, and suggestions. So these four types of sentences are needed to write rules and regulation in SEE. So let's start from permission. When we talk about permission here, permission means that it's okay. If you do something, that means it's okay. Now, what sort of phrases, words can be used to express permission under rules and regulation? So we'll talk about this first. Let's go one by one. Permission. Do you remember certain expression that indicate permission under rule and regulation? Try to remember, my dear students, try to remember certain expression that indicate permission. Certain verbs. For example, the modal verb can be used to express permission when we write rules and regulation. And another verb is may. May can also be used to express permission under rule and regulation. And the verb allow, and another verb permit. These are used to express permission when you write rules and regulations. So when we use can, this is informal. Remember, can is informal, may is formal, allow is formal, and permit, if we use the word permit is both formal and informal. So, for example, let's talk about sentence. Use can to express permission. For example, you can smoke here. This indicates permission to state rules and regulation. And may, can you remember one structure using may? So may, maybe, let's say you can smoke here, you may smoke here. Smoke here. So what is the difference? You can smoke here, you may smoke here. We can use any structure, any sentence to state rules and regulations, it doesn't matter. But can is informal, may is formal. That is the difference. And now, allow. Can you use the word allow to state rule and regulation? Remember the word allow to express rule and regulation. For example, you are allowed to smoke here. You are allowed to write here. To write here. To write here on this board. So these sentences express permission. And remember, can, may, allow, permit. They are used to express permission. Now we have used can, you can smoke here. May, you may smoke here. Allow, you are allowed to write here or you are allowed to smoke here. Permit, and another word is permit. So let's say smoking is permitted here. Smoking is permitted here. Yes, smoking is permitted here. Now you have noticed some differences here. Look, you can, you may, you are allowed to, but here the subject is smoking. Sometimes verb ing may be the subject of rule and regulation. So again, can, may, yes, allow, permit. So these are the basic verbs of expression, and can is informal, may, allow are formal, permit both formal and informal. You can smoke here. One example use of can. You may smoke here. You may write on the board. You may climb the tree. And here you are allowed to write here. You are allowed to stay here till 10 o'clock in the evening, like that. And smoking is permitted here. Joking is permitted here. Okay, such kind of structure can be used to express permission. So we need such kind of sentences to express, to state rules and regulations. So my dear students, have you seen on the board? Do you remember these things? Can, may, allow, permit. So subject you, may, can, verb 1. Okay. So this way we express permission. And now I request you to go to the second topic. Second topic. our second topic is obligation. Sorry. Okay. Permission means it's okay. Now, obligation means, do you remember the meaning of obligation? Obligation is, it is necessary. It is necessary. Remember, obligation, it is necessary. We give rules and regulations that indicate the visitors to do something that it is necessary. So, what are the phrases, words that indicate obligation? So, obligation. Now, have to indicates obligation. Similarly, need to indicates obligation. And must is used to express obligation, and sometimes we use required. The verb required is also used to express obligation. And here I have already told you that obligation is, it is necessary. Something is necessary for us to do. Wherever we go, if we see rules and regulations, this indicates that we need to do. We have to do. We must do. We are required to do. So, let's talk one by one. You have to. Can you make one sentence using have to? That indicates certain rule, regulation of some place or some private institution. For example, let's say you have to show your ID. So you have to show your identity card, like that, okay? You have to show your ID. Here, you have to indicates obligation. So we use have to express rule and regulation. Similarly, need to. So need to is, so one thing, this is less formal. You need to remember it. This is less formal. So you have to show your ID. Obligation, but less formal. Similarly, you need to let's say wear a tie. So use of need, and this is also less formal. This is also less formal. So you have to, need to express obligation in rules and regulations. They are less formal. We can construct sentence using have to like this. You have to show your ID. Okay. You have to, let's say, take off your shoes, and you need to wear a tie. You need to put off your shoes. Such kinds of rules and regulations can be stated using have to and need to. Similarly, must. Another word that indicates obligation is must. So here must is, let's say, here we have said less formal, so must is more formal. It is more formal than the use of have to and need to. So must, let's say, you must respect your teacher. Now look here, you must respect your teacher. So here use of must to indicate obligation when we prepare rules and regulation. So use of must is more formal than the use of have to and need to. Similarly, sometimes we can use the verb required to express obligation. Can you use the same situation using required? Use same situation, okay, to use the verb required. That is, you are required. You are required. You are required to show your ID. This is another structure using the verb required to show obligation. So have to, need to, must, okay, required are used to indicate obligation when we state, when we write rules and regulations in exam. So are you clear here? So I think so. Now again, look here, I'm going to rub it. First we talked about permission. Now second, we are doing obligation to write rules and regulation. So under obligation, have to, need to, must and required. These can be used. Now the verb required is also more formal. Remember this, more formal. So it does not mean that have to and need to are less formal, we should not use that, and these two are more formal, we should use that. This is not. We can use any one, it doesn't matter. Okay, but you need to know that these are less formal and these are formal. But in exam you can write any one, it doesn't matter. You can use have to, need to, must, okay, required. You can use any one, it doesn't matter. But keep it in mind that use of these two words are less formal and these two words are more formal. But from the examination point of view, you can use any one. It does not matter, and it does not make any difference in mark. Okay, now I think you have got some idea here. So I want to go to another topic. Under obligation, let's say I'm going to rub it. Here again I want to remind you one thing. Here obligation is, it is necessary to do. That means that is your duty. Remember, obligation is your duty. And if it is duty, we should do it. We must do it. Now, there are certain expressions that indicate no obligation. No obligation. Now remember, we are under obligation. So have to, need to, must, required are used to express obligation. And sometimes we need to express no obligation also. So how to indicate no obligation? Don't have to. One is don't have to. Don't need to. Don't need to. Okay? Don't need to. Not necessary. Not necessary. Okay? These expressions are used to state no obligation. So, no obligation here means it is not necessary. It is not necessary. Remember, obligation is it is necessary to do. No obligation means it is not necessary to do. So, don't have to, don't need to, not necessary, not required, not required, and the word optional. Optional. These expressions can be used to state no obligation. For example, some visitors are coming to visit park, and if it is not necessary for them to do something, we can use these expressions to express, to state. Now, for example, can you use the word have to? Can you use the word have to? For example, let's say you don't have to, let's say, wear seat belt. For example, you don't have to wear seat belt. That means wearing seat belt is not necessary. This is no obligation. Now, don't need to. So, don't need to. Let's make one sentence. Let's try to make one sentence using don't need to. Can you? Don't need to. For example, in informal case, we can say you don't need to wear shoes here. For example, you don't need to wear shoes here. If we go to certain formal program, wearing shoes is necessary. This is obligation, but there may be some places where you don't need to wear shoes. So in that case, we can write this statement. Now, not necessary. Maybe your school sometimes state you a rule. It is not necessary to bring your parents. For example, it is your result day and your school may say, it is not necessary to bring your parents. It is not necessary to bring your parents. Now, so this statement also is used to express no obligation. It is not necessary to bring your parents. It is not necessary to bring your parents. Now next one, not required. Now you are at your home and your teacher might have given you some homework to submit online, and you are doing very hard to finish it on time and to submit the homework to your teacher, and at that time your teacher may give you notice. Okay, you are not required to submit your homework online. You can submit your homework offline tomorrow. So this may be, you are not required to submit your homework online. So that means no obligation. That means it is not necessary for you to submit your homework online. So optional. Can you use the word optional to make one rule or regulation? For example, let's say we can say wearing a tie is optional. Okay, in certain situation, wearing a tie can be optional. So at that time, we can write this sentence as a rule. Wearing a tie is optional. So remember, to express obligation, we talked about have to, need to, okay, must. So here for no obligation, don't have to, don't need to, not necessary, not required, required obligation, not required, no obligation. If we use required positive, it is necessary. If we use not required, it is not necessary, no obligation. Same is the case. You have to, obligation or no obligation? Have to is obligation. Don't have to is no obligation. Need to is obligation. Don't need to is no obligation. Similarly, not necessary, no obligation. Not required, no obligation. And the word itself, optional itself, is used to express no obligation. That is, wearing a tie is optional. So I hope you have got some point here. Now again, still we have two more topic, prohibition and suggestion. Now let's go to prohibition. Okay, let's rub it also. Now, prohibition. What is its meaning? What do you mean by the word prohibition? Prohibition is, it is not okay. It is not okay. Permission, it is okay. Prohibition, it is not okay. So we used can, may, okay, permit to express permission. Now to express prohibition, that is, it is not okay, we can use certain words and phrases. For example, we used can for permission, cannot for prohibition. Okay, can't or cannot. mustn't. Another, not allowed. Not allowed, not permitted. Okay, so not permitted. These expressions, these words and phrases are used to express prohibition under rules and regulation. For example, can you use the word can't? That indicates prohibition. Remember, can. For example, we can say, let's say, you can't use mobile here. This is prohibition. It is not okay. It is not good to use mobile here. So using mobile here is not okay, is not good. So this is prohibition. You cannot use mobile here. Now, mustn't. Can you use it here? Mustn't, to express prohibition. So we can do like this. You mustn't be rude to your teacher. So you mustn't be rude to your teacher. This can be the rule of the school. So if you are asked to write rules and regulation of school, okay, of library, so you can use this sentence. You mustn't be rude to your teacher. You mustn't be rude to your librarian, like this. Now, not allowed. So let's say you are not allowed to swim here. There may be certain places, okay, so you are not allowed to swim here. Now next one is permitted. So let's say smoking is not permitted here. Smoking is not permitted here. This can be another statement to express prohibition. So it is not okay. Doing this is not okay. Okay, doing these things, all these things are not okay. Okay, so we cannot do these things. They indicate prohibition. So such kind of structured sentences are needed to express rules and regulation in exam under guided writing. Now, again, still we have one more, that is suggestion. So let's go there. Suggestion. So it's very short and easy. Do you remember the words, phrases that can be used to express suggestion? Think once. What can be used to express suggestion when we write rules and regulation. Have you tried to remember? For example, we use should and shouldn't. So should and shouldn't can be used to indicate suggestion. So for example, you should walk slowly. Okay, you should walk slowly. This is suggestion. Now, shouldn't. If you go to the beautiful park, you can see one rule, okay, one suggestion there. Maybe you shouldn't pluck the flower. Pluck the flowers. So, suggestion to do something, suggestion not to do the things. So, these sentences can be used to express rules and regulation. Now, I want you to remember the things that we have done here. What we did under permission, can, may, other, under permission. Permission. Do you remember? Permission means it is okay. We can use can, may, allowed, permitted. Okay. So to express permission. Have you remembered? Can, allowed, may, permitted. Similarly, second, obligation. Obligation is duty. That is, it is necessary to do the things. So words are have to, need to, another must, required. Okay, these are to express obligation, duty. And next one is no obligation. Don't have to, don't need to, not necessary, okay, not required, and optional. Similarly, next one is prohibition. Prohibition means, do you know? Do you remember it? So, it is still here. It is not okay. So, the words, phrases that can be used to express prohibition are can't, mustn't, not allowed, not permitted, and the next one we talked about is suggestion. Should and shouldn't. These two expressions, these two words can be used to express suggestion. You should walk slowly and you shouldn't pluck the flower. You shouldn't pluck the flower. So, suggestion to do something, suggestion not to do something. So, now, Now, I want to summarize everything that we have done now in 3-4 lines. So, when we give rules and regulations, when we do rules and regulations, so we can use certain structures. For example, the first one is verb ing as subject, is or is not, okay, is not plus, now required, permitted, required, permitted, prohibited, allowed, okay, to plus. So this is one structure to use to express rule and regulation. Second one is, remember we have already made many sentences using this structure. Second one is, you are, let's say you, remember smoking is, smoking is not. There may be certain places where smoking is allowed. So smoking is allowed and smoking is not allowed. Similarly, you are or you are not. Same. Okay. Third one is, you should or shouldn't plus verb 1. Okay, this is another structure. I have already given you the example of all structures. Now, next one is, do you remember? Must, mustn't, can, cannot. Okay, let's say you must, mustn't, can, can't plus verb 1. This is another way of writing sentence to express, to give rule and regulation. And you, let's say, you have to or you don't have to, or you need to or don't need to plus verb 1. So these are the certain structures to express rules and regulations. And I think we have left one. The last one is, you can or you may. You can do something, you may do something, that is to give permission plus verb 1. So these are the structures we use to express, to state, to write rules and regulations. So smoking is not allowed. You are required to submit the homework in time. You should study hard. You must, can you guess what I'm going to say? You must listen to learn listening. Let's say, you don't have to come to school on Sundays. You can or you may go out. So these are the ways of writing rules and regulations. So I think I have covered almost all the structures, sentences, statements that are needed to write rules and regulations in your SEE exam. Now is the time to write rules and regulations. Really, okay? Rules and regulation. Let's choose one topic and write rules and regulations for this. So when we start writing, you need to remember the sentences. Okay, I have given here under permission, obligation, no obligation, prohibition and suggestion. You need to follow these sentence structures. They guide you to state rules, to write rules. And one thing I want to say here is, it is not necessary to use all the structures. It is not necessary that you need to write sentence from permission, you need to write sentence from obligation, and one from no obligation, another from suggestion, okay, another from prohibition. Okay, sentences from each topic is, let's say, are not necessary. So you can use maybe 2, 3 prohibition, only 1 permission, and there may not be obligation, and in some places there are obligations and there may not be permission. So don't worry about which one to write and which one to leave. What you can do this, but whatever you write, whatever you do correctly. Follow the structures, make correct sentences. Okay, so you write but your sentences are incorrect, you don't get marks. So write correctly, and you may not include all the sentences. It is not necessary to cover all the sentences, to cover permission, obligation, no obligation, prohibition, suggestion. Maybe you need 3 topics, some from obligation, some from no obligation, and 1 to suggestion. Finished. Okay, so this is the way we do. Now let's go to write rules and regulation for one topic. Now, so let's write rules and regulations for the zoo. Rules and regulation for the zoo. Now let's remember the sentences your teacher might have given to you in the class. Can you remember? Now, what can be the first rule for the zoo? Let's say entrance without, remember, entrance into the zoo without a ticket. Okay, entrance without a ticket is prohibited. Now here you can use other intensifying words. For example, entrance without a ticket is strictly prohibited. You can use this word here. So, entrance without a ticket is not allowed. Okay, so the word can be changed. So, I don't mean that here should be the word prohibited. You can use other words also. Now, second, remember what can be the second word, second rule for the zoo. And here I don't mean that the sentence says the rule should be in order. Okay, there is no order, but as far as you can, so put them in sensible order. Now, visitors are requested to show their tickets. Show their tickets where visitors are requested to show their tickets at the entrance or whenever the zoo officials ask. Okay. Whenever the zoo officials ask for them. Okay, this can be another rule for the zoo. And third one, can you remember? Can you remember other rules for the zoo? Maybe visitors are strictly forbidden to feed the animal. If you go to the zoo, you are not allowed to feed the animals. So this can be another rule. Visitors are forbidden to feed the animals. To feed the animals. Now, next one. Fourth rule. Let's say instead of visitors we can use you also. You are forbidden. Okay. Visitors. Yes. Visitors are requested to keep a distance from the animals. Now, next, let's say, give time. No visitor. Okay, no visitor is allowed to enter before 8 a.m. and what happens? We are not allowed to enter the zoo before 8 a.m. and stay after 5 p.m. So generally we are not allowed to stay in the zoo after 5 p.m. So no visitor is allowed to enter before 8 a.m. and stay after 5 p.m. So we have covered one topic today, that is rules and regulations. I hope I have facilitated you to some extent, I have helped you to some extent, and you are studying hard, you are practicing it very much. So even if you are doing well, so I think I have helped you to remember, to revise to some extent. So in our next class, we will continue from here and go to writing instruction. So let's try, you think some topic yourself and try to write instruction, and if needed you can contact, you can ask some question, so you can submit questions here on the desk of Waling television, and we'll try to answer your questions. So till next class, I want to say goodbye from here. So see you in next virtual class. Namaste. Goodbye.
तपाईं हेर्दै हुनुहुन्छ वालिङ टेलिभिजन।
बेस्टको धमाका पोखरामा पढाइसँगै मनोरञ्जन, सिप र कला। बेस्ट एकाडेमी पोखरा, बेस्ट ब्रिज कोर्स सेन्टर फर